It's a battle between Mr. Consistency. Roper is only finished outside the top 10 or top 5 twice this season, and the hot shoe. Walsh has more wins than anybody else in 2024. But Chris is going to have to rely on that speed as we get ready to watch the season finale of the Porsche Owners Club Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is SRO driver Michael Johnson. Behind the scenes is our director, Daniel Costello, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. We'll wrap it up here at the Red Bull Ring, so to introduce anyone unfamiliar, let's head to our track guide. Welcome to the Red Bull Ring. Located near Spielberg, Austria, this track began life in a much more fast and sweeping format. Having gone through multiple different owners, it eventually was snatched up by Red Bull and has its 3 different layouts you see today. While they range roughly between 1 to 2.5 miles in length, the thing they hold in common are fast straights, hard braking zones, and very few corners. In fact, the longest and most common layout, the Grand Prix course, has only 9 of them. Spots like Rebus and Gosser are the most popular corners for overtakes, but both involve dramatic elevation changes. Each have their perils. Remus tends to see drivers make contact when the blind cutback often goes wrong, whereas Gosser tempts you into braking far too late, and the downhill nature shoots cars miserably into the gravel. A few swift bends still scatter the track, with turns like Lauda, Rent, or A1 really testing a driver's accuracy at high speeds. However, most of them don't send you off into the grass. Rather, there is a lot of paved runoff. But they often include some nasty curves most cars will want to avoid hitting, as they've been known to damage suspension and under trays. A variety of types of racing compete here, with everything from lower Formula open-wheelers to motorcycles, touring cars, and all the way up to Formula One holding events regularly. Set among the gorgeously picturesque Alps, and including great racing on a challenging and history-rich circuit, it's easy to see why fans and drivers are both eager every time they come for a race. Well, we saw a lot of this track this weekend, Michael, but that was with slightly faster and much more high downforce cars.
Indeed it was. The F1 guys were out there, but here we have the Porsche Owners Club. Now this track is, well, actually one of my favorites. It's just sitting in a valley, and it rings of the engine sounds the entire time. It just flying down the start-finish straight up to Niki Lauda. You can hear it in the car. You go through Lauda, you smash that loud pedal, and head down to turn 3. Turn 2 is like a non-turn, kind of a bend somewhere in the middle. Then you got turn 3. Big opportunity for passing there coming up into Remus. And then it's a little bit tricky. You got to wait for somebody to make a mistake through the rest of it. But if you get a really good slingshot coming out of turn 10, also known as A1 or A1, that turn, you're going to come through there and you might have an opportunity coming down to Niki Lauda. So only 2.6 miles, very short course, almost 2.7, 4.32 kilometers. And they say 9 turns or 10 turns, depending on how you count it. I've always counted it as 10, but we kind of have it listed as 9 here.
Yeah, it is not a complex one, but certainly will force drivers to master what few corners are around here, or else you'll pay for it. Now, the people who are paying for this series includes Porsche. There is no substitute. Find out more at Porsche.com. And Game Changer Wealth, helping you become a game changer with wealth. Contact them today at GameChangerBR.com or at 225-664-2565. Now, we've talked a lot about the championship, and if we take a look at it, it's an interesting situation. AJ Roper leads the points, but he is not able to be here today. That said, Chris Walsh still needs to perform, as third or better will make him champion. Fourth or worse will mean he has lost out. And Arnold's numbers right now show him at 168. The drop weeks should get him to 170 since he isn't here today. So he has 2 drop points in his pocket. and that will put him up to 170. So Chris does not have any drop points, so that 10 is legitimate that he is behind. We'll see what he winds up looking like come the end of this race. What about today's race details, Michael?
Well, today we've got round 13 of 13. This is the season finale. Everyone's driving the Porsche 911 GT3R, the 992 version of that car. This is a fixed setup 30-minute race. Fixed setup, everybody's got the same one out there. There are no alterations. The only thing you can change in this car is the brake bias. So if you're feeling you need a little more bias towards the front or back, you can change that, but that is the only opportunity you have.
Well, right now they're in the last couple laps here of qualifying. And interestingly, Chris Walsh is not our provisional pole sitter. He's not even on the front row. And that is Jad Duncan and Ezra Kelderman, who is ahead of him right now. Chris all the way down in third. So right about on the cusp of what will still make him a champion this season, Michael. This is a bit surprising. I think we all kind of expected, chances are good that Chris could walk away with this one easily, but it's not looking guaranteed.
Well, a lot of it comes down to participation. You've got to be there. He has only 9 races that he's shown up for this season, and if you're not there, you don't get the points, or you get 0 points, and that's not helpful in that quest for the championship. Jad Duncan, on the other hand, he's shown up, he's been there every time, as far as I can. I think he did miss 1. So you got to be there. As I well know, I think it was about a year ago, we were looking at a very similar situation where I was ended up being the champion for this league because I was at absolutely every single race. I might have missed 1, but it doesn't matter how fast you are if you're not there.
Here's Ezra coming down. Now, he is one of the few drivers in the top 10 that is not eligible for the championship. So while he was showing in 5th, he's missed too many rounds. Those 9 that Michael mentioned, 9 is the minimum amount you can attend and still be eligible for the championship. So he, Ezra, and Sagar Dhawan are the two, unfortunately, within the top 10 that could not be the champion regardless, and will get kind of bumped down at the end of the season once the score is tallied, and won't get any prizes or anything. This is Chris Walsh in the meantime. Last year he was in that situation, and we kind of expected him to show up because of how dominant he was arriving about halfway through, Michael. And to be fair, he was dominant, but he's been so hot and cold. I think he's either winning, and he's got a couple second places, and other than that, he's mostly been, I think it's 7th or lower in his finishing positions. So it's definitely been something that Chris Walsh maybe needs to look at for next season, no matter what happens with this one, since he clearly has the speed. We've known he's had the speed, but just can't seem to keep out of trouble from time to time. This is Dustin Heindel. I feel like we've seen quite a bit of improvement from Dustin since he first showed up here, Michael, and we're going to take a look at his impressive racing rig that we always love to watch.
Yes, I love the way he has that beautifully wide monitor set up there. Dustin's a good driver. I've definitely spent some time playing around with these guys and going head to head with him. He's very quick. Just like Chris Walsh. Chris is quick. He is very, very fast, and that's going to be a little wide there, Dustin. Nice try, but I don't think that one is gonna count for you.
I think he's going to be one of our first to cross the line to finish qualifying, and yeah, that one did not count, unfortunately. Our current pole sitter is going to be the next one, with Jad Duncan heading around Rent into the final corner. He also goes extremely wide, so I don't think this one will count for him either, although he does have the fastest lap by 0.3 of a second. And around this track, that's a pretty big margin.
That's a huge margin. The if you watch the F1 race and you notice how tight everybody was, like I think it was like the top 7 were around a tenth or so. I mean, it was crazy how tight it was. If you're 3/10 off, you may as well be a mile off, because here is there aren't a lot of opportunities. So many of these corners are just fast, high-speed sweepers, and they kind of don't count as a corner because you just have the pedal to the metal going through it, and as long as you keep the car on track, like right there, this is another one of those great spots. You come out of that corner through, I think it's 7, and he just went through 8 there, coming up to 9. All of that is pedal to the metal. You are absolutely flat-footed through there, and and just skittering right on the edge of adhesion.
So Castillo's the next one across. Kelderman, unfortunately, unable to improve on his time. Castillo doesn't either, and he takes it over to the wall to maybe express some frustration there at the end. And he's the last driver to have finished in that qualifying session. 12 of them have shown up. Still going to be a good race, I imagine, out here. But that means that our qualifying is indeed done. And a bit of a shocker for Chris Walsh, only managing to put it into 3rd. Let's see whether or not he can bring that home from here in that 3rd position to claim the title. The one thing that I think is perhaps the strangest feature of this whole thing, Michael, is you said you had talked to the guys about where in the world is AJ, and he definitely has one of the more unique excuses I've ever heard.
Yeah, I think the official story is he's out hunting beaver tonight. I'm not sure where he's hunting beaver, but that's what they said.
So, I mean, definitely not one I've heard before, but it looks like our qualifying is officially over and the grid is set. So going through our starting order, Jad Duncan takes himself another pole position. Ezra Kelderman will be starting next to him. Chris Walsh will begin from 3rd, needs to finish that or higher to be our champion. Mark Rondeau will start from 4th, and then Dustin Heindel will be P5. Then it's Jeffrey Shulam in 6th, and Dylan Scott in 7th. Ian Roche rounds out the outside of that 4th row. Will Castillo, good qualifying in 9th. Larry Haas puts himself into the top 10. And then our last two sees Jim Garamani in 11th and John Momeyer in the 12th position. They're getting lined up. As always, it is a rolling start for this series. So hopefully that'll help some of the craziness down into the first corner, Michael, because this place is kind of notorious for cars getting tangled with one another into Niki Lauda.
It is quite a pinch down there into turn 1, and it is such a fast turn, and everybody's been practicing it at full speed. And you don't really get put out there when you leave the pit lane, because you have the bend around turn 1 to feed in after turn 1. So it is a little bit difficult for you when you're when you're in this position with cold tires and not the normal speed, and even being offline, so you might not be absolutely certain where you should be starting.
All right, so as they get going, warm conditions on the track surface itself at 100 Fahrenheit, so that should get the tires working pretty quickly, but better hope that you don't wear them out through some of the quicker corners, especially these last two, which definitely puts a lot onto the left side tires. Pace car is in. Jad Duncan has control of the field. Kelderman's holding way back, though. That's going to frustrate that outside row that probably wants to be a little bit farther up. He's trying to see if he can maybe watch visually to see when that car takes off. But the yellow and black machine of Jad Duncan is waiting for the green, and there it is. Green flag is out, and we accelerate up towards Niki Lauda. Very blind first corner, and Chris Walsh is going to be able to try and take that second place away. He's got the inside, but he hits the curb a little bit too much, and he can't get the throttle down. It looks like Ezra holds on to P2.
Ezra Kelderman playing actually a pretty smart move there. He's holding back, and he knows he's going to be able to slow down Chris Walsh's exit on turn 1. So if he sits back there and he takes it, instead of relying on the hopes the guy behind him is able to slow him down, because honestly, slowing down Chris, that's just that's just folly right there. You don't slow Chris down.
That was Ian Roche that we saw spinning there coming out of Remus, but looks like other than a little contact in the back that started the spin, he's okay. Coming down into the braking of Schlossgold, that is Larry Haas to the inside of John Momeyer. Momeyer using that grip on the outside, though, to great effect. And coming up into Rauch, he is going to have the inside line. Now he's got to get the job done. He's a little timid, though, under braking and fighting back. Larry Haas still going wheel to wheel.
Yeah, Haas holding the outside here. Momeyer holding up on that inside. Still got the nose ahead. And it looks like we've got Will Castillo trying to be part of this party in that orange machine right there. So here we are still on board with John Momeyer, who's able to pull away just a bit. And, oh, it looks like Castillo's able to get through there. Larry Haas falling back another position.
Impressive how much Will has made up here, because he started from pit lane and he's up to 8th. So usually you have a bit of a gap to make up at the start of the race, but he's definitely been on the throttle pretty quickly. Meanwhile, up at the very front, Duncan leads Kelderman, leads Walsh. Walsh is not letting Ezra get away quite yet, but how hard does he want to fight?
Well, if I were Chris, I would just be sitting here enjoying the view for a little bit and maybe putting a little bit of pressure onto Kelderman to try to get him up to Jad and let those guys make mistakes. Chris is not one to make a mistake. I think he's fallen into a few, but I think if he sits here and he just watches this race for a little while, we've got some time to go. There's still 27 and a half minutes left in this race. So we've got a lot of time, and these are very short laps, lots of opportunity for mistakes.
Still very close to the back of Kelderman. Up in front here, it stays in order, but it did not between Castillo and Momeyer, as Will moves himself into 7th now with a pass into Remus. Curious how high he can take that orange machine. But the Carolina driver now follows through the dirty air wake, and you can see how hard it is, even though these are just GT cars, to try and follow in the tire tracks of that number 7.
Yeah, you still get quite a bit of a wing wash off these cars, especially when you get a little bit closer. If you're looking about a second and a half down, you got a nice little draft going on. But once you get about 3 to 4 tenths off the tail of somebody, maybe even up to about 5 tenths, you are definitely feeling the effects of that wing. You lose everything on the nose. That front does not want to bite, and that's when you have the opportunity to, whoa, just kiss the bumper, I suppose. But you have the opportunity to change that brake bias to get a little bit more rotation of the car by using the brakes in the rear a little more effectively.
And I got to wonder, now that you bring that up, if that's what Chris has been doing to help him find so much speed since he joined this series, since he is a real-world professional driver in IMSA, I believe, and has obviously looked quite quick everywhere he goes. So maybe that's an edge that he's a little bit more used to than some of these guys, of being able to tweak those settings in the heat of battle.
I remember when we were driving the Cup car, at some tracks, I would change here in the sim. I would change my my brake bias almost corner by corner, or at least corner complex by corner complex, because I could tune it into exactly what I want. We had no control over what we did with the rest of the car, with the rest of the suspension. So the only thing I could do. And Chris may be getting ready to push for a pass here. He's really getting up close behind Ezra. He's ready to either force Ezra into a mistake, although actually Ezra's closing up quite a bit here too. He's up to about six tenths right off of him, and about 3 tenths back to Chris Walsh. So this is getting pretty tight. But as I was saying, using that brake bias to be your suspension that you don't have an opportunity to change, that really helps a lot to help you make these really fast laps.
Nice little battle for 5th here between Schulem and Heindel right now. That is Dustin Heindel and the lighter blue machine behind, trying to fight for that P5. Doesn't look like he's got anything coming down into Schlossgold, which is such a difficult braking zone, heading steeply downhill into there, but a nice tidy line from the 12 car. It gets them very close.
Yeah, you can always expect Dustin to be patient. That's one thing I saw in him when I was racing with him, is he does have a fair amount of patience. He doesn't generally put his nose in where and when he shouldn't. He waits for that opportunity, and he really wants the other person to make a mistake. So he's showing the nose as he comes down in here. We're coming up to turn 9, and Jeffrey Shulam just backs out of it, takes the position behind, and does not want to get too deep in there, but then pushes up really close on the exit. So both of these guys aware they could really mess up each other's race. Going a little defensive here. It looks like Dustin's trying to hold that inside. Jeff Shulam going up around the outside. Can he make the pass around? Ooh, it's a drag race down, going up to turn 2 into turn 3. This is going to get pretty exciting.
Great stuff from both of them. Fair play. They left space, but man, Jeffrey Shulam deep on the brakes into turn 1. I thought he'd miss that corner. As they come through Remus now, he'll try to maybe cut back underneath, use the switch back on him, but it's not quite there. And Heindel will hold on to that overtake in the end.
Yeah, that is a good battle right there. Both of these drivers, I've worked with Jeff a fair amount of times. He is also a patient driver. He's not going to make an impulsive move. He calculates everything he wants to do. He makes sure that he's focused in the right place, and he also doesn't want to put the other driver out. He doesn't want to make contact with them and have what could be deemed an unfair pass. Anytime you've seen Jeff get into a bad situation, it's been an honest mistake on his part.
Now, if my eyes are not deceiving me, I think Ezra's a lot closer than he was a lap or two ago here. I don't know if Jad is struggling with tires or if he's made some mistakes, but this is now a 3-car battle for the lead.
Now, I'm wondering if Jad is thinking about how he can keep Chris Walsh back there. One thing he can do is give a little bit more of a draft to Ezra. So Jad Duncan may be playing a few games here. Jad is smart when it comes to racing. He knows what he wants to do, and one of the big things is keep Chris Walsh 2 cars back instead of 1. Having Chris Walsh on your tail is not something that makes for a fun time leading the race.
Is that was that Sainz that did that back in Singapore one year, where he just gave his friend a little bit of tow and some DRS to help prevent the car behind from having a good opportunity to pass it? It certainly is a bit of a risky maneuver, but it seems to be something a few drivers have kind of picked up on.
I think Alonso did it recently, and I think Ricardo did it a couple of years ago. It's smart play. You want to make sure you don't get the guy behind you don't want behind you. If you know you can beat him, the guy who's behind you now, but not the guy behind him, help the guy behind you for sure.
Interesting stuff. So the Sainz defense, I guess we'll call it here, for Jad Duncan versus Chris Walsh and Ezra Kelderman, as Ezra tries also to hold on, maybe get a little bit closer himself. I don't think he wants to continually be under pressure from Chris Walsh for the remaining 20 minutes in this race. Still a long ways to go until we get to the end of this one. Look at them all accordion together and just about nose to bumper for each of them.
And Ezra is a lot closer to Jad right now. Jad Duncan's still in the lead of this race, but Ezra Kelderman's got a good opportunity to try to make a pass as we come up into turn 3. Both going to braking. Ooh, Chris Walsh going super deep on the irons there, but not coming out great. Looks like Ezra is trying to... Nope, he decided to save it for later. I think he's happy to let Jad kind of tear up his tires as much as he can. But now looking up the inside as we come into turn 4, sorry, it's not going to happen. But he's making his presence known now. He is saying, I'm not going to be your lackey. I'm tired of having Chris on my tail. I want to get around you.
Oh, and that's a really wide run for Jad. It's going to open the door once again. Ezra could maybe get it done into the unusual spot of turn 7, but he doesn't have enough grip. This now gives Chris Walsh a chance to finally break through that wall that has been the number 7 car, and he's going to show himself coming up into Rent, but I didn't think that was going to be a serious attempt.
Yeah, it's a very difficult place to pass coming through 9 there. You really want to set yourself up right here coming through 10, but look how close Chris Walsh is now. I don't know if this is going to help too much for Ezra. He is right up under the wing. They're both about, well, under 2/10. Each of those gaps is under 2/10. These guys are really putting on a show. It's Lawrence Welk. It's straight up accordion.
What a reference there. Chad Duncan has no fight in the championship on this one because Ezra is the next one down on points. But again, Ezra will not qualify once it's over as they all break way too deep. And Chris might be able to get through Chad Duncan even if he plays his cards right. Ezra Kelderman with a beautiful cutback through Remus as they plunge back down the hill now. He's got to finish it up. He's going to be to the inside. Chad Duncan going to try and see if he could do what we saw earlier from John Momeyer, but no dice. Now he's going to have to play defense on Walsh.
Yeah, Kelderman had him all the way down the hill. Chad was just holding on to it, but it looks like Chris Walsh is trying to sneak around the outside there. Chad Duncan getting the power down a little bit better as we come up into turn 7. Tries again. He has just a little bit of nose out there. Looks like, oh, Chris has gone a bit wide. A little bit of contact there, door to door. I'm wondering if Chris is going to get a slowdown penalty for that. He was pretty far deep off into that gravel trap. But as we go into turn 9, it looks like side by side, and Chris Walsh is around.
This has championship implications. He falls down to 4th. He is outside of championship winning position now, and we don't know what kind of damage is on the car. There are no scheduled pit stops in this series, so if he comes in to try and take repairs, that is pretty much it. I can't believe he fought that hard.
I am shocked that he fought that hard. He could have shared first place for the season, but he went for the pass. But I got to tell you, as a racing driver, you go for the pass if it's there. If you see it, you have to. It's just in what we do. We cannot let it stay. You see that opening and you try to go for it.
So it's not over. He's about 4.7 seconds off of Rondeau. He could try and chase him back down, though his focus right now might be the car behind, because Dustin Heindel has been kind of shadowing him ever since that blue and white number 104 pulled back onto the track. Down through the right-hander. No attempts down into that corner. How aggressive does Dustin want to be?
Looks like Chris Walsh has a bit of damage on the nose, just a little bit on that front splitter. I don't think there's anything else, at least that we can see. Now, if we're able to get a look inside the car, we might be able to see if he's got his steering wheel cocked to one side or something, but I don't think so. He seems to have a straight wheel from when I take a look. Yeah, you see right there, it looks like he's got a straight wheel while he's going straight. So he's getting a little bit of understeer as he goes into these corners, but I think with a little brake bias adjustment, he can probably remedy that just a little bit. Maybe not completely, but enough to get him back into the running.
So last lap, a 133.1 for Walsh. Rondeau, a 31.7. Holy cow. So that was much quicker for Rondeau. Now, granted, Chris may have still been slow as he was getting the car going, so he may not have been fully up to speed down the straightaway. This lap might tell a different story as we check back in with Chad Duncan. No longer our leader. Ezra Kelderman made that pass, and as those two were fighting, Ezra said, "Peace out. I'm going to go win a race."
As you do. If everybody else is having a scrap behind you, just eyes front and get going, and every once in a while take a look and see how far back they are, but really it's not too much concern. You just need to get your focus forward and drive to the end of the race.
That car behind them is actually not for position. That's oh no, that is for position. That's Mark Rondeau back there, so he's running in third right now. Chad Duncan probably at least wanting the second place in there. Chad comes off of a podium last week, but lost out right at the very end to AJ Roper, who got himself up into second, which was pretty critical in the championship hunt and might wind up being the thing that nets him the title when all is said and done. Back to Ian Roche and Will Castillo. This is the fight for 7th. We haven't seen Will take any more spots since I last reported on him passing Momeyer, but this is, I think, a recovery, Michael, for Ian Roche, is it not?
Ian had that spin on,
Yeah.
I believe, the first lap. So, yeah, he is working his way back through the field, currently in P8, really close up on Will Castillo here. He can almost taste that Jägermeister at this point.
Let's see if it's delicious or not. Oh, as he's going to get pinched. This looks very familiar from this weekend. Got to give him a little space. And Castillo is going to leave it open, although he breaks deep into the corner, manages not to run into the side of Ian's Porsche. And now they have to carry the battle on down to the next corner.
Yeah, this is getting pretty exciting through here. This is crazy to try to race through this section. I always think this is not a good place to be running side by side because you really end up, well, out in the gravel for one, but you end up losing ground heavily to the other vehicles around you. So the people you're chasing are having a lot easier time opening up that gap to you.
People saw the F1 race this weekend and said, I'll have a bit of that with how hard they're racing one another. Jim Garamati is going to allow John Momeyer by. He got on the radio, told him to kind of carry on by. Guessing Jim being a bit of a newer racer in this series, probably just trying to get to the checkered flag.
Yeah, Jim's had a couple of races here. He's been the ever-present gentleman. He might not be quite up to speed with everybody else, but he keeps working at it and practicing, comes to the nightly practices, shows up at the race weekend or the race day, and then he just gets better and better just by little bits and little bits. So back up to P5, we have Dustin Heindel here. This is Dustin on, it looks like Chris Walsh. So Chris's damage on the nose seems to be a little more than I suspected. He still had that straight steering wheel, but Dustin has really closed down this gap, and Chris's gap up to Mark Rondeau, almost 6 seconds now. 5.8 is what I count from Chris Walsh up to Mark Rondeau. So Heindel closing this gap down because it looks like Chris has a bit more damage than we're able to detect.
And for reference, his laps before the damage were easily in the 31s, 31.5, 31.3, somewhat consistently. He has not been able to break under 32 seconds since he's had his accident. So we'll have to watch on the straightaway and see if we can kind of compare his straight line speed to maybe some of the leaders, and that might tell the tale right there.
Yeah, I'm looking at his speed right now, and I have it listed in kilometers because that works better for me. Looks like he's getting up to 218, 220, 225, 230, 229 is what he was getting down the end, right up to his braking zone. So we'll check out what Ezra Kelderman's doing when he comes around on his next lap.
I did check Kelderman up into turn 2, and he hit 140. Walsh just barely creeped up to 140, so he seems to still have close to the speed, but maybe it's that just enough of a difference that it's eating away 100th at a time.
And it could be the mid-corner speed. He's getting a little bit of push as he goes through the apex, just because of that damage on that front splitter. So he's not getting that downforce he needs. Be a good opportunity for him now to start moving that brake bias in the direction to get that nose to stick a little bit better in those corners.
Well, Chad Duncan's actually also been quicker than Kelderman, so he's catching back up to the leaders. We've been watching that 83 machine. Also, the bad news for Chris Walsh in all of this, Dustin Heindel's best finish is 5th place. Dustin right now sitting in 5th place. So if he can overtake Chris, I'm pretty certain he's going to want to do it.
Yeah, I think that's a good call there. I think Dustin really wants to get around Chris because honestly, Chris is so fast in this league that anytime you say, hey, I passed Chris, I beat Chris, that's just a wonderful feather to put in your cap.
When you've got a target on your back, it makes life a little bit difficult for sure. Jad Duncan that time around, a 32-2. Kelderman, 32-1. So he's picked it up a little bit here. Ezra going to try and see if he could just keep himself out of reach as we get a nice little battle between Ian and Will. And that one's going to go in favor of Roche that time, who had to defend into Nicky Lauda.
Yeah, Roche still able to stay ahead, doing a good recovery drive here. He is up to P7. Will Castillo, who started from the pits, up to P8. They still have a good gap, though. The gap between Roche and Jeffrey Shulam is about 6.5 seconds, and then Shulam up to Heindel is another 6 seconds or so.
So Ian holds him off for the time being, but we're down to less than 10 minutes left to go on the clock. How eager will be to try and get back to 7th? Well, a little too eager that time as he ran all the way through the gravel on the outside of the corner.
Yeah, I always say consistency is the key. I was racing on iRacing earlier today in a different car, and started off in, I think, P7 or so, and actually won the race because my standard deviation, the amount of the difference from lap to lap, was about 1/10 of a second. So the other guys who were in the race were like, "Are you just a metronome?" I'm like, "Yeah, kinda. Sometimes it works out that way."
Gotta play to your strengths, that is for sure. And Dustin Heindel, I think, has been pretty consistent himself. He's actually pulled away from Shulam, who was battling earlier, by 5 seconds. Unfortunately, it hasn't been enough to really rattle Chris Walsh off of his line. In fact, Chris is kind of edged farther forward by what looks maybe 2 more car lengths over that 12 machine.
Yeah, Dustin Heindel still about 1/2 second, 6/10 or so behind Chris Walsh. Chris, I think he's starting to get the feel of the car. First, you have to figure out what's not working, and then you have to know what to do to get around it. And someone with the experience Chris has is going to know, okay, I need to move that brake bias towards the rear just 2 clicks. Is that enough? Oop, that wasn't enough. Let me do another 2 clicks. Oh, that was too many. Let me go back, forward 1. Okay, nailed it. Oh, I got a guy on my tail. Let me use this newfound knowledge and try to pull away from him.
And he did break that 32 mark that I said he was unable to get under for a couple laps there. Last one, he was a tad slow. I'm sure the tire is getting a little bit worn by the end of this race as well, since he's no doubt pushing them pretty hard, trying to fight against the deficiencies of the damage at this stage. But as he comes out of the final turn, he goes way wide off of that last corner, and he does have to be careful because he got 4x from that contact, no doubt, Michael, and they only have 17 total before they're given a drive-through penalty.
Yeah, you got to be careful, and if you start racking up too many off tracks, each one of those off tracks is a point as well. So you get 4 from the contact, and then you go wide on a couple of corners. The next thing you know, you're sitting up at about 13, and well, that gets pretty crazy because 13 and 4, that's going to put you in a really bad place.
They can't afford any more contacts at that point, for sure. And Jad Duncan, I don't think he's thinking about contact. He's thinking about trying to overtake, as he's cut it down to 1/2 second now. He has outpaced Ezra the last 2 or 3 laps and is within range that he could maybe try and attack. He's going to have to get slightly closer, and he's running out of time, but I don't think this win is in the bag yet for the 7.
The interesting thing here, these 2 guys have run 31.4, well, almost a 31.5, and a 31.3, almost a 31.4 as their best lap time. So both are capable of turning some real burners. My only question is, did they turn those while they were in draft, or did they turn them while they were in clear air? Sometimes it is easier to get a fast lap in clear air because you're not having to brake a little bit earlier or change what you want to do in the brake zone because of the way the other person brakes. So I think both of these guys have really good opportunity here. It looks like Jad is getting closer and closer, down to about 0.3 of a second, coming up into the braking zone, wants to get wide out there. Kelderman tries to hold him off by holding a little bit of a defensive line. Who can get the power down? Who can get the traction coming out of turn 3? Looks like Kelderman's able to open that back up to about 0.4.
And before this gets too hot, I want to give a quick mention to Marc Rondeau. I didn't think to check until now. This will be his first podium if he can hold it here. And it's not a podium that's going to be a distant one. He's within about 2 seconds of these guys battling for the lead. So today has been a wonderful race for the 11 car.
So commentators curse in full effect, or is he going to actually make it? I would love to see Marc do it. Marc is one of those guys, I would talk about how people come out and they're racing every night. Well, he actually is there every single night. I think he just ignores family and friends and says, nope, I'm racing. That seems to be pretty much all he does in the evenings. He gets behind the wheel. He's at the beginning of practice. He's at the end of practice. He does every practice race. He is always there. So I would love to see Marc Rondeau on the podium.
Hard work will often earn you at least a little something in racing if you play your cards right. And for now, Marc Rondeau has positioned himself well. He's the one in the background in the gray machine. But the dark blue/black car is Ezra Kelderman, your leader, with the yellow and black belonging to Jad Duncan. Jad was able to get a win back in round 10, but it has been since round 7 since we've seen Ezra Kelderman take a win, which is a bit hard to swallow because he's usually fighting for these victories.
Yeah, this is an interesting race here. It looks like Jad has decided to back off just a little bit. We have about 3 minutes left in this race, and at a minute and a half a lap, so we're looking at about 2 more rounds, maybe 3, depending on where they hit that start-finish line. But I think Jad really wants to take this opportunity to cool those tires down and make one last pass at it, one last push to get that pass, probably going up into turn 3 would be my guess.
And while Jad is not able to try and take the points lead on this one, I get the sense that this would be a very poetic ending to the season because he kicked it off with his first win, remember, back at...
That's right. He could bookend this, couldn't he?
Yeah, exactly. But he's going to have to overtake Ezra to do that. And we are down to 2 laps to go this time by.
So, yeah, Ezra Kelderman with that number 7. If we're going to talk about the common use of number 7, that's Ronaldo's number if we switch to soccer there. So Ronaldo, well-known number 7. He's not playing games out there. Oh, I guess he is. He's playing soccer. It's a game. But he's always fighting for the win. It looks like Ezra Kelderman doing the same thing.
Surprised with your German upbringing that you don't call it football, but maybe you've been around Americans enough.
Well, I think most of our audience is American, so if I were to say Fußball, they might understand, but it might be confusing too.
The little table with the guys. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
That's it. You need at least 3 beers to start. Yeah.
Meanwhile, we're going to be coming to the white flag pretty quickly here. Jad has been keeping him honest, but it feels like ever since he cut it down to those 0.5 of a second, I think that arrow wake, again, is just preventing him from getting within striking range.
Yeah, see how that wing wash affects him right there. I had a different camera on, and I could see he was totally off of his apex, and it really affected him coming down to this corner. He's going to have to adjust, turn in just a tiny bit earlier. Now he can afford to burn those tires up. He's been cooling them off for a couple of laps. Now it's time. And watch this as he comes through that last corner, really puts the hammer down. He has closed this up. It's right at 0.5 seconds. He is really making the push now as we come up to turn 1 into the braking zone. Ezra Kelderman hard on the brakes. Look at that. He's closing up. It's under 0.5 seconds now with Jad. Jad goes wide. He might get a slowdown for that. I don't know if he was too far out there, but he might have gotten a slowdown.
Final lap, 1 to go. We got to remember that if either of these cars crash out, Chris Walsh will move back up into 3rd. And I can report that Ezra did not go too wide for a slowdown, so he was able to carry on. Still, there was one of the best opportunities to overtake. Jad Duncan watches that one fly by. Now coming down into Schloskel. He's way too far back. He is going to put himself as wide as he can go to open up this corner, but from here on out, it is going to be nigh on impossible unless he gets a major mistake out of that 7 car. Marc Rondeau still looking at that 3rd place, and if things finish as they are, Chris Walsh will be 2 points shy of the title.
I got a feel for Chris there. He is such a fast driver, and he's worked so hard when he's able to make it. But once again, looks like Jad Duncan catching a little bit too much of that wing wash. Ezra Kelderman opens it back up to about 8.5, 9 tenths here. Ezra Kelderman trying to make that last push for the finish.
One more corner to go. He won on his second ever race in the POC series. He's going to finish the end of the season with his second win here at the Red Bull Ring. Jad Duncan gets himself second on the road. And then Marc Rondeau does indeed claim his first podium finish. Meanwhile, it is Chris Walsh who will finish fourth and winds up just shy of being able to beat Arnold Roper, even though he wasn't here today. Frustration, no doubt, within the cockpit of that car.
I think season one of each year is not the one for Chris. It's just disappointing. It's got to be frustrating to have gone so well and done such a fantastic job in so many races, and just work takes you away. You got to show up and get to those paying gigs before you come to the iRacing stuff. So I guess he did the right thing, and he's got some good results when you look at his pro racing career. But wow, what a finish there with Momeyer going super wide. Is Larry going to get Larry Haas, John Momeyer? It's going to be close. That was pretty close. Looks like 0.035 there at the finish.
It was mighty close, and I think that little bump was just for some fun. End of the season, so it might as well just have a little laugh there. Looks like, as we check out the results, Ezra Kelderman will show he can, in fact, bring it back to victory lane as he takes a win off of second on the grid. Jad Duncan maybe a little frustrated that he couldn't get another victory after starting on pole, but he collects another valuable podium. It is Marc Rondeau who gets his first podium of the season, finishing in third over Chris Walsh, who definitely sounded frustrated over the text chat after the initial wreck with his fellow competitors. We'll have to accept fourth. Dustin Heindel was P5, and Jeffrey Shulam was 6. Ian Roche got spun on lap 1, managed to get himself back to 7th, which was actually a net gain because he started in 8th. Jim Garamani coming from last on the grid, or second to last on the grid, to finish in 8th today. Will Castillo scored in 9th. I wonder if there was some sort of penalty there that we had missed that sent him farther down. Larry Haas was 10th, and the last two on the field going to be John Momeyer and Dylan Scott today. Well, that was not the last race of the season I expected to see, Michael. I thought that we'd see Chris play that one very smart and laid back in points race, and he kind of let it slip through his fingers, if we're honest.
It looks like when Ezra had the opportunity to make that pass on Jad Duncan, Jad just missed the apex. He went a little bit too hot into there, and it created an opportunity. And again, as a racing driver, if the opportunity is there, you're going to take it. It is so hard unless you've got a spotter in your ear whom you trust implicitly, and they tell you to back out of it. You're gonna go for it every single time. So I understand what happened with Chris. I'd have probably done the same thing if I were in that position.
Yeah, I can completely understand. Does look like we have our winner ready to talk to us, Ezra Kelderman, who we have to remember, as you just mentioned, had that great fight to take that lead away. Ezra, been a minute since we've seen you in victory lane. How does it feel?
Very surprising. I kind of don't know what happened there, but it was a really good battle. I didn't know we were having this race this week. I've been practicing in the wrong car. And then I guess that's the way to do it from now on. I'm just going to not prepare and then hop in last minute.
It worked out well. And on top of that, you had to withstand some pretty good pressure from Jad there at the end. Did you feel confident that you could keep him behind like you did?
Not really. I was really struggling. Once I got the lead, my front tires, I just was battling to keep them under 200. And I don't know how Jad has more pace on me in general, but I saw him slowly creeping up. I had one of those moments where I kind of got out of the zone, and then once I saw he was 1.3 behind. That's kind of the dangerous number, and tried to focus again and pushed as hard as I could. But hats off to Jad. A couple more laps, he might have had me.
Well, since you showed up at round 6, you've been at every single race. So are you going to be back next season to try and attend for a full season?
Yeah, I plan to be. I kind of found out about the league from BJ, around that week 5 or 6, and wish I had joined sooner. But yeah, I was hoping to make as many as I could.
Well, we can't wait to see more of you. It's been exciting to watch, and congratulations.
Thanks, guys.
That was Ezra Kelderman, our winner here today. I believe Michael has caught up with Jad Duncan, our second place finisher.
Indeed, I have. Jad, wow, what a start. Interesting finish. Great race, honestly. I think you did what you needed to do, came out, and you got yourself on the podium. I'm guessing a bit bummed that it's not the top step.
A little bit. I got a slowdown that I did not expect when I was in the lead, and it kind of ruined everything from there on.
I was wondering what happened because we saw how they closed up. You were kind of managing that gap to Ezra, and then you got through that middle section there, and all of a sudden they caught up to you, and it looked like you kind of missed an apex. Were you still trying to bleed off speed when you missed that apex?
Yeah, I had to bleed off speed from the last corner, so I had to go slow into 1, and that allowed them to catch me. I lost my lead.
Bummer. Well, you led it for quite a bit. It looked like you were having a good time out there.
It was a great, fun race. I still don't know quite what happened with Chris. I think there was a little net code or something, because I thought, giving each other room, and all of a sudden he started spinning in front of me. So hopefully
Yeah, it looked like it didn't look like to me that there was any ill intent. Everybody looked like they were giving room because you had been for several corners previously with both Ezra and him. So it'll be interesting to see what the stewards have to say. I think, just my guess, is it'll go in your favor that it was just a racing incident. But you never know what the stewards are going to do, right?
Yep, but that was sure a fun race, trying to catch Ezra the whole way at the end. I had a touch of speed advantage, but not enough that I could ever do anything safely.
Yeah, it looked like you were really closing up pretty well there at the end. So next season, coming back, I understand there is going to be 2 different cars. Have you decided which one you're going to be in?
No, not yet. I wanted to get through this season, but looking forward to that one because I won't miss the double points event like I did this year. So hopefully I can make those next time.
Yep, that'll be good. Looking forward to seeing you again next season. That was Jad Duncan, our second place finisher. Meanwhile, it looks like our third place finisher, happy to be here in the booth with us. Joe Peak has got him ready to talk.
I thought we would. I don't see Mark Rondeau around anywhere. He seemed to have disappeared, which is a bit of a shame because I was happy to get to talk to him about his first podium of the season. I'll give him just a second to see if he pops back in here. Because again,
let me take a peek and see if I can find him real quick. Hold on.
Yeah, we'll send Michael off to. Oh, he just appeared actually. So no need to run off. Actually, Michael, let's pull him in and see how Mark feels about finally getting it done in the last round of the season. Mark, I guess the phrase "better late than never" comes to mind. It took all the way until race number 13, but you finished on the podium. Oh, and Mark maybe having some problems with his microphone here. Let's try to.
He's not one known as shy, so I'm pretty sure he's happy to talk to us.
Let's see if we can get a copy from Mark. Mark, can you hear us? Oh, he seems to.
I can hear you.
There we go. Now we got him. Don't know if you heard my question before, Mark, but I said better late than never. Glad to see you on the podium on round 13.
Yeah, finally. It was a fun race, and I kind of pulled a George Russell.
Exactly. I'm sure he would have liked those two to fight and hand you the actual win up there. Were you surprised that you were able to keep up with them all the way to the finish? Because I had mentioned, this wasn't you cruising in 20 seconds behind the leaders. You were only 4 seconds off the lead at the end.
Well, part of that was luck, and I didn't try to overdrive. I maintained pace, and I was able to keep a good pace the whole race.
Well, that you did to excellent effect out there, getting yourself a third place. We were talking to some of the other drivers about the change in cars next season. Do you know which class you're going to jump into?
I really like the 963, so I might try that. It's a handful, especially in the wet, but it's a fun car.
Looking forward to that. And yeah, it's a beautiful looking car. Well, again, thank you for coming in and chatting with us. Congratulations. Anybody you want to shout out?
Thanks to GSRC, to POC, to my family, my friends, and my son Leiden, who's watching this right now.
That was Mark Rondeau finishing P3 here today at the Red Bull Ring, which will wrap us up with a big thank you to the Porsche Owners Club community for bringing us back for this season of coverage. As we mentioned, they'll be back for the next season in only 2 weeks' time. We'll talk about that in a bit. In the meantime, we want to mention their sponsors, Porsche. There is no substitute. Find out more at Porsche.com, and Game Changer Wealth, helping you become a game changer with wealth. Thanks to the team today, Michael, Daniel, and Dougie. And make sure to check out our social media, our website, and our merchandise store. But also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment. When we start the next season up, it's going to be at Sonoma. That'll be Monday, July 15th at 11 p.m. Eastern. Also, be sure to check out our other broadcasts that we have listed here. And until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.